It's estimated 100 million crackers could be pulled in one festive season alone in the UK. And I got my calculator out. If you laid those disposable crackers end to end, they could reach the North Pole from the UK 8 times.
Welcome to the Tales to Inspire podcast. Before we get started on this episode, I would like to invite you to our community so that you can hear more stories to inspire change within your life and positive change within the systems in which we live. All I want you to do is to click on the subscribe button. Your comments mean the world to us with anything that's resonated with you, and I absolutely love your support. I can't wait to go on this journey alongside you. Thank you so much for subscribing. Let's get into today's episode. I would like to say a huge thank you to today's sponsors, the Better Business Network. Now, we have been part of the Better Business Network since its founding in 2020, and we absolutely love being a member and what that provides. The network is an inclusive nationwide community for purpose-driven businesses, for those who care about their social and environmental impact and want to do something to support the world in which we live. They help you grow your impact, income, and audience while advocating for systemic change. They give you access to events, tools, resources, and training to upskill your organization to ensure that you don't leave any gaps towards the world that you want to live. They provide events, tools, resources, and training to upskill your organization towards supporting you on your journey towards being a better business. To find out more about the network, head over to thebetterbusiness.network online. Today, we're going to a deep dive with Bea Thackeray.
My name is Bea Thackeray. This is my tale to inspire.
Bea, would you like to introduce yourself? Welcome to the Tales to Inspire podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. So our podcast, to give you the heads up, we've shared over 150 people's stories now since November of 2019, which has been a journey in itself. It's such a learning curve. But would you like to introduce who you are, where you're from, and we'll go from there?
My name is Bea Thackeray. I'm the founder and designer at Keep This Cracker, my small business based in Salford.
Amazing. So welcome to the podcast. So let's go back to the beginning, your life, your family background, where it all started. So what was it like being a child in your shoes? What was that environment like?
Going back many decades now. I grew up in the 70s, so life was very different. I grew up in London, northwest London, second generation immigrant family. So I grew up bilingual, going to school on a Saturday when none of my other friends had to go. That used to be really, I'm like, why do I have to go? My friends don't have to go. But obviously I was brought up in two cultures. So that was quite interesting in itself.
Were you an only child?
No, I had a sibling.
All right, okay. And were both parents from a different culture, or was it? Because I'm mixed race. I've got. Right. Were they both from?
No, both from the same.
Okay.
So we spoke one language at home and one language outside of home.
How was that identifying to your community? How did, for example, with mine, I always kind of felt a little bit lost being part of Britain, but knowing that I've got Indian parents and not really knowing where I belonged in this whole grandeur of everything. How was that for you growing up?
Gosh, I didn't know anything else. So it's a really difficult question to answer, actually. We were part of a community, so I did have friends that were from the same background as me.
Okay.
But I did learn English at nursery school before I went to school. Okay. So Polish was my first language, and then English became my first language. So,
what was your dreams? Did you have any dreams at that age?
I can't really think a specific dream. I used to just get lost into making things. I would be up in my bedroom for hours, just drawing, painting, making, sewing. I've always had the sort of desire that I had to make something from a very young age.
Is that something just natural that just doing things? And were you doing it for someone, or was it just
for me?
Just for you?
Yeah, just for me.
Get off! This is my box of stuff that I've made.
Well, yes. I mean, I remember getting a Cindy doll because Barbies were far too expensive in the 1970s, and making a little bedroom out of a shoebox and making all the little curtains in the bed and everything for her. And so I think it was just this kind of sort of need to just create things.
When did you always do that in the same place? In, like, for example, in a studio, bedroom, often at that age, or wherever that would be, or did you do, wherever you went, you had little creative spaces where you could kind of get to be who you wanted to be in creative?
I suppose school was kind of torturous in that I just wanted to do art lessons. And if when I got to secondary school and we had one session of art and followed by double maths, was for me just physically painful. It's just like I just wanted to sit and draw all day. So yes. So
in that environment then, because school brings structure, not always the greatest structure, and you have to do this, but you knew that you're a creative and you want to be creative. Did it make you, like, what did you do during that high school age and you was like, you know what, all I want to do is be creative? Did you kind of object to that? Did you try and fit in?
Well, I had to get on with it because, as we all have to in a sort of exams, it's a curriculum, a base structure. But I always found creative ways of doing things. Like I loved biology because you could do all the diagrams.
Right, okay.
I loved drawing the diagrams. That was the bit I really enjoyed, or geography or whatever. I did enjoy history as well. So it wasn't a complete sort of, it was more the kind of, I suppose I struggled with maths.
Right, okay.
And genuinely, and so that was just, I did manage to get my O-level. I don't know how, but I managed to,
Got it.
to get it. But I do remember going to, when I was in my sixth form, the art teacher said, oh, well, you can apply to this place called an art school, but you have to think really carefully because you'll be drawing and painting all day. So just, have to consider that. And I was like, bring it on. Where is this place? Take me now.
Heaven.
Heaven. It was like, oh, wow. Yeah. So from then on, I applied for a foundation course at Harrow School of Art.
Wow, okay.
And then that's where my art education continued.
So going into that art education, what was it like to step into that new world, the kind of one that's more built for you and the creative space, and thinking like, because it's not often people get that opportunity to witness what that is like. So what was that like, stepping into that world?
Oh, it was just massive contrast.
Was it?
Yes. Just being challenged creatively, looking at things in a different way, just experimenting with different materials. It was brilliant.
And what kind of things were you drawing? Were you making? Were you creating? Were you working by yourself? Were you working with others?
We'd work in teams. We'd work on our own. It was just varied. I remember, there were two occasions I absolutely loved. We got to go to the British Museum for a week and sit and draw. So we had to find a spot in the museum and just sit and draw for a week. Oh, it's just amazing. And then we did another week at the V&A, which I just absolutely loved that, being in that one space and just being able to just concentrate and draw and sort of absorb the atmosphere. That was great.
When people make art, so I'm the least arty person in the world. I love the audio podcast side of things, but actually drawing, I actually got an E for grade. So in my school, it was, you get effort. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 being the most amount of effort, and 5 being the least. I got a 1 for effort, but I got an E for grade. So I tried my hardest, but I was so bad at it. But it was one of those things that I definitely appreciate. I really love what art brings to. I feel like it takes the ceiling off a box and says you can be anything, and you don't have to be defined.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things we learnt at college was that nothing is ever wrong. So you being marked down on your piece of your drawing, it wasn't wrong in any way. It's what you created. How could that possibly be wrong? But when it comes to design, it's whether it's appropriate. Have you answered the brief? And that's how you judge and value. But in terms of art, gosh, it can be whatever you want to create, and it's subjective as to how somebody judges that.
So how do they narrate that in an educational setting? Because they are telling you what to do, or are they just saying very generally, do this in any way that you like, and they'll support you on that? How do they do that?
I think it was more about, in terms of art education, it was more about just opening your sort of viewpoint on the world. I mean, I remember walking into the studio once, and there was just a whole pile of chairs all piled up the wall, and desks and everything all in sort of strange shapes, and we had to draw the spaces in between. So it just makes you think very differently about how you approach that subject. So as again, it wasn't a right or a wrong. It was how you how you interpreted that brief.
And that side of things, even looking at that, it's like one of those things that it kind of makes you look at things from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like a room full of chairs, I can only imagine what it would look like, and I'd be like, look at all those chairs, but no one would say, look at the gaps that are there, and it's just, whoa,
absolutely.
Completely different perspective. So where does your journey go from there?
I went on to Harrow School of Art to do 3 years a graphic design degree, and then after that I went to the Royal College of Art, did another 2 years there, so I think in total about 6 years of studying. And
were you studying knowing what you were going to do afterwards, or is it to learn and to grasp as much as you can? Like, what were you doing during that study process?
I'd chosen graphic design because I believed that that's something I could get a job out of at the end of all this. The actual choices of the kind of courses we could do were quite limited, and I mean nowadays, gosh, there'd be like loads of different choices, and I probably would have gone maybe down a different route, but that wasn't available at the time. So I did graphic design, but that allowed me to look into packaging, work on packaging, because the thing I love most is folding paper.
I've never heard that sentence in my entire life. The thing I love doing most is folding paper.
Messing around with bits of cardboard. Yeah, that's what I really enjoy.
And so you literally cardboard, you're just messing about with it, and that's something that, well, we'll go into that in a little while. I have no doubt. But graphic design, 6 years of art education. Then do you have to then go and test this out, what you've learned? Do you have to go into a job, or like what's the next stage?
Well, for me, we had a degree show at Royal College of Art, and I had designed a book for a women's group. It was storytelling from this women's point of view, and they approached me and asked me to design the book and do the cover for them. So I did it as like an extracurricular activity, and I did display it with the rest of my work, and we all had like a little notebook that visitors could write comments in, and somebody from the body shop had come round to look at the exhibition and left a note saying, please call this number. I've still got it, I've still got the little book. So I rang. It was somebody that was working with an erotic, and I rang, and they said come in for an interview. So yeah.
You just never know who's in the room.
You don't know. And I just wonder sometimes, if I hadn't had that book on display, would I have not got that message? Would it have not taken me down that route?
And the power of like one connection can literally take your life in a completely different journey.
Yeah, and that keeps happening. That's happened to me a few times along the way. Yeah.
Because I meet so many people, and nothing against accountants, but I know quite a few of my friends are accountants, and it's so set in goal, like set in concrete. They know what they're going to do, and they've always known what they're going to do, and that's the way it's going to be, and it's like, but the power of one connection can change your life to a completely different way. Why not allow that space to, who knows what's going to happen? I guess everyone's different, but it's that one person, the interview at the body shop, how did that go? And
well, yes, I had an interview with Anita, because at the time we're talking, well, this was 1988, so the body shop was much smaller, hadn't really gone on its massive growth journey just at that point. But fresh out of college, I felt I needed a bit more experience. I thought before I go straight into sort of in-house design. So I turned it down.
Wow.
I know. But it was really with the intention of, well, I want to do that maybe a bit further down the line. So I did, I got a job in a small design agency doing a lot of graphics for sort of fashion magazines and sort of fashion brands. And then 6 months later I got back in touch, sent a letter. And apparently she saw my letter on somebody's desk and went, get her in. So they rang me for another interview. And so I went back again. And so she offered me the job then. So, So
Is the reason you got back in touch in 6 months because you realised you'd learnt what you wanted to learn within that first 6 months, or actually you made a mistake and you wanted to... What was the reason you got back in touch within 6 months?
I think I felt more ready. I felt like I'd actually experienced different disciplines and different ways of working, and I felt I had a bit more grounding. I felt sort of ready, so I didn't regret it. It was just lucky that she said yes, come back.
And then, so just to clarify, so Anita, what's Anita's last name?
Roddick.
She's the founder of the Body Shop,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So the Body Shop, for any of our listeners or people watching from the US or India or wherever you are, the Body Shop's a big company here. Great values, really, really great values, and I always remember the Body Shop because it's the smell.
Yes.
Like walking down the street and what's that smell? Oh, it's the Body Shop, right?
Yeah.
But what was that like? You've just gone into this, at that time, were they a small startup?
But she'd opened her first shop in Brighton in 1976.
All right, okay.
So by the time I joined, there were a few hundred shops already in the UK.
Right.
They hadn't really expanded into America or the rest of the world. There were some shops in Europe, Australia, but it really started to, the time I was there for 12 years, so I saw that company grow into the global business it eventually became. So so that was a real journey.
What were you doing for them?
I was responsible for gift packaging and basically anything that didn't go in a bottle, so all the accessories. So I used to work with the accessories buying team and basically design gift ranges for Christmas. That was a big part of my job. And for those who remember, in the early days, the Animals in Danger range, which became a really big part of the collection. I worked on that for about 8 years. I was just like constantly thinking, right, what do we do with the animals this year? Well, maybe we'll do environments in danger, or maybe we'll do baby animals. And it just, but that was a very successful range, and I loved working on that. That was really, really fun. So, yeah.
How do they give you flexibility? Do they give you flexibility in that to say, you know what, you go and create? How do they talk to your creativity that you've always had with you whilst being in that role with those objectives of, I'm sure they gave you objectives of, it has to be sellable, it has to really appeal, it can't just be environmentally friendly or ethically, it has to have the appeal to be able to sell.
Yeah.
How did they give you that scope?
Well, there were sometimes restrictions create more creativity, funny enough. In the early days, for instance, Body Shop never used models for any of the campaigns. So everything was illustrated and painted. A great team of designers that worked on those posters. People used to stop and ask to buy them. In fact, they had a catalogue in the store. You could actually buy the posters. They were so good. So that actually, being given that challenge meant you had to sort of, if you're given more challenges and more restrictions, it almost allows more creativity, because you have to think about different ways of doing something.
Yeah.
But working with a team of buyers, I had quite, that things had to be created to a cost. So how many colours something was printed, or all those considerations had to be taken into account. It was commercial, so it was a mix of creativity as well as working within a brief. But I got to go around lots of factories, which I absolutely loved. I love going around factories, just seeing the manufacturers, seeing how things are made, from anything from plastics, metal, printing on tin plate, printing on all kinds of materials, cotton. So we used to I was lucky enough to visit a couple of fair trade projects. One in Nepal, it was a handmade paper project. So I went there a few times, worked with them, developing products that they could sell. And also in southern India, I designed sort of massage rollers out of wood, and we did tote bags, cotton tote bags, which, yeah. So it was really, from that point of view, I loved that part of the job. And going around all the trade shows and just seeing, I used to go to trade shows and look at what wasn't there. So what are people not doing? Fascinated me more than what was actually there.
Yeah.
Just seeing where the gaps are in the market.
There's something that I studied at university, weirdly enough, in the US, and when the lecturer talked about it, I was like, I'm never going to use this ever again, and it was called gap analysis. And essentially, the general focus of gap analysis is seeing the gap, seeing what's not there, or seeing a problem like, oh, this door's not tall enough, or whatever's not working. And instead of seeing it as a problem, there's a gap there, so where's the solution? And that's probably not just happening to you, it's probably happening to others as well. So there's probably a product there, and if it's not there, why is it not there? Is it because it's already been done? It can't exist? And it's just having that creative thinking that kind of flipped it up on its head, instead of me being a victim, oh, I can't believe that's not there, and complaining, to actually get creative and figure it out.
Yeah.
So I love that, seeing those gaps and just seeing what you can do and would you take that back to the team and say, look, there's a gap here, can we do something about this?
Yes, so we worked sort of together on that, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
That's so cool. So where does the journey go? You were there for 12 years, did you say?
Yes.
Okay, where does the journey go from there?
Then I left in 2000, but I always say they never left me, because I ended up freelancing for a few extra years as well.
Okay.
I moved to Yorkshire. My daughter was 4 years old at the time, so we felt like we needed a change, and had a small design business, graphic design business.
Okay. And who were you working for, and what were you doing on the graphic design side of things?
We were doing mainly sort of packaging, brand work, developing brands for businesses. Yeah.
And the businesses that you work with, are they often the ones with common values, like what you work with The Body Shop, or were they anyone and everyone, just come on in and we can work together?
I suppose if you go back to 2000, before anybody had kind of thought about the concept, corporate social responsibility wasn't such a widely known term or even implemented in a lot of businesses. So I suppose back then it would have been much harder to restrict yourself from that point of view. Yeah, nowadays you can...
There's more socially conscious.
Absolutely,
businesses.
Absolutely. So there's more scope to do that. But
isn't it remarkable, like, the changing of the times? Like 2000 or 2002, and it's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not that long, but look at the development and the change in consciousness of businesses and individuals and where we're at right now. That if you'd said, I'm only going to work with sustainable businesses in the year 2000, essentially you would have had no business. You know, because who are you going to get doing that with you? Like, and that's their thing. So to be able to do that and go into your own business. So what was it like having your own business? Because you've always worked for others. Having your own business now, was that a little bit of a difference?
Yes, in that you can be your own boss, but at the end of the day your client is your boss.
Right.
So you're always having to answer a brief and and convince them of the direction that you're suggesting. So we'd quite often do more than one concept. Normally what they asked for, always what they asked for, and then what you thought was the right direction.
Right.
And the hope was that you'd be able to steer them in where you felt the direction would go. And usually, we kind of managed to do that.
Because I can imagine, because some of the organisations that I've worked with in the graphic design space, sometimes they do just what you ask for them, but I'm not the expert in that field. So like, I want to be told, like you said, give me two options, and the one that you know is best, let's go down that route, more than likely, because I only know a certain part, and this is your area of expertise. So to have that space is something really special, and to have the creativity to do that as well. So how long were you self-employed for?
Oh, well, I still am.
Still
Well,
am? I love it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
So that
yeah,
journey of
long
being
term.
self-employed started, and then the graphic design, how long did you stay in Yorkshire for? You've had a small young daughter, so what was it
Yeah.
like being a mother as well, and an entrepreneur at the same time?
Yeah, challenging. Yes, juggling sort of work-life balance but I had a lot of support from local support network. So yeah, I do look at mothers now running small businesses or their own businesses and having to juggle all that, and I'm in awe, to be honest, of how they do it, how they navigate that journey. So yeah.
Your daughter, whether at that 4 years old, or did you see the same creative spark that you had, that you'd had as a young age? Was that similar to her as well?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, in her pushchair we used to have like a block of paper and a kind of spiral thing with a crane on the end of it, and she'd be like, oh, so I definitely saw that creative spark as well. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, amazing. It's just like that journey of, you never know what your children will be or what they'll become, but you give them the opportunity to be whatever they want to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes in your case, it's a piece of paper and some pencils and some crayons. I love that. So where does your journey go from there?
Well, I kind of veered off in a couple of different directions, actually, because dialing back again, while I was at the Body Shop, I was asked to do a talk at the Royal College of Art about paper, and by that time I was really interested in handmade paper and what you can do with paper. So it was part of a series of talks, so I was just like one segment, but I had a carousel with slides on, there weren't PowerPoints or anything like that. And I opened my talk, I called it Pigs Can Fly, and I opened my talk with an image of this giant papier-mâché pig kite that was flying through the sky. And we just went on to talk about all the amazing inventions using paper, and thought nothing more of it. But what I didn't know is that there was somebody in the audience who knew somebody at Conran Octopus Publishing, and they knew that they were looking for somebody to write the introduction for a book on paper. So they got in touch with me and said, would I be interested in to write the introduction about it for this book? I said, yeah, of course, because I take every opportunity. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the introduction, and then they came back and said, we'd like you to write the whole thing. Wow. So I was like, oh wow, amazing. But that involved researching local craftspeople. So the whole book is in 3 parts. It's paper making, decorating, designing. So it starts with the history of paper and the different techniques, handmade paper. I drew on my experience in Nepal with seeing how handmade paper was made. I also did some volunteering work in Bangladesh with a paper factory there as well. So I drew on all that experience. And then the fantastic opportunity to just go and visit lots of top but people in their field, like bookbinders or paper marblers or papier-mâché artists. So that was fun. And then that led to something else, because after having had the opportunity to travel to Nepal and India and experience fair trade, that was something I became very interested in as well. So once I'd left the Body Shop, I started importing handmade paper, and from sort of fair trade, and making cards and gift boxes and products out of them. So I became part of the BAFTS network, British Association of Fair Trade Shops. And they had a conference up in Newcastle at the Tradecraft office. And I learnt about what the work that Tradecraft were doing. I thought, oh, this is fascinating, this is brilliant. Had a meeting with one of the ladies from that department, showed her my book, and again thought nothing of it. And about, I think, a couple of years later, I got a phone call saying, yes, we're looking for somebody to run a workshop with some African And so it's South African paper factories, small SMEs. So we want somebody to basically run some workshops with them on sort of product development, marketing. Would you be interested? And I said, oh yeah, that's great. I'd love to do that. Brilliant. So I said, oh, when are they coming to Newcastle? And they said, no, you're going to Johannesburg. I was like, brilliant. Oh, I was just like on cloud nine. I was like, oh, this is amazing. So yeah, so that was my first opportunity to do that. And then they asked me to come back again. So I did 2 workshops there and sort of got to learn about the tradecraft way of learning by doing, which was really, really interesting way of training. They were like sort of week to 10-day workshops that ran all day. It was quite intense. And then I got to go to Bangladesh, to Cambodia, Vietnam, Philippines.
Doing the same thing?
Doing the same thing, yeah.
Wow.
And my last project was working on a jute project in India and Bangladesh. So I worked with, the brief was to explore different ways that you could use jute, what products you could develop. So I worked with a team of designers in Dhaka and a team in Calcutta, and then we all came together. It was just brilliant. It went over for about a year's project, and the products that they came out with at the end were just fantastic. I absolutely love that.
What are some of the learnings about getting the opportunity to go to, whether it's Bangladesh, India, South Africa? Like, what are some of the learnings you got out of that, working with these other cultures and individuals?
I suppose I got to experience being in a country not as a tourist. So I got an insight into people's lives that you wouldn't get, which was really fantastic. I was really humbled by the creativity, ingenuity, the thirst for learning. In fact, years later, I met a lady in London who had been on one of my courses in the Philippines, and she was in London, wanted to meet up with me, and she said she still remembered all the things that she'd learnt on that course. And I think I developed a game called the range game. Okay. It's how do you develop products into ranges. And it was a very practical, it was like a sort of bingo type game. And I just remember this one lady, and she'd run a business for a good sort of 20 years. And she just stood up and said, "That's amazing. I'd never thought of it like that. You know, you've completely changed my view." And for me, that was like, if I could just help people in the smallest possible way, it was really humbling.
I think there's something really special, isn't there, of getting the opportunity to put different people in one space. And when that happens, something really magical happens. Yeah. And bringing that connection, giving different perspectives. So you've had and if someone said to you, it's a bit like today, how do I become that person who does that? You wouldn't be able to say, well, you do this, you do that, it's just a journey of connections to get to that spot. Yeah. And learnings as well. Yes,
it is taking those opportunities when they come along. Definitely taking the plunge.
I've got a question about paper. What's so special about paper then? Because paper would you say paper's your material? That's, if anyone's going to say, you know, out of any of the materials you get to choose from that you want to be creative with, is it paper?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yes. Right, you've thrown a spanner in the work now, seeing that you've talked about... I've all kinds of materials, but paper in particular, because it has a memory. It has the structure of it, the way it behaves. It's magical stuff. I think it's kind of taken for granted, really. A lot. We just think, oh, that's just a sheet of paper, but there's so many elements to that piece of paper that you can use, and you can print on it, crease it, fold it, glue it together. It's part of that.
There's so many different things you can do with it.
And it's something that I guess you don't think about those things until you sit down and talk about it. Paper's been part of my life forever. Yeah. It's part of most people's lives always. Because paper is just one of those things that's always there, but being creative with it is like, You've just kind of opened a new box to it. So where does your journey go from obviously doing all that? Are you doing something else at the same time as that, or is that your sole?
Oh, it was running alongside the
Right,
design
okay.
work, yeah. So it wasn't all, it didn't stop. It was kind of, coincided.
So you've got your own business going on one
yeah,
side of things,
yeah.
the graphic design, then you've got
Yeah.
your projects working with the people in all sorts of places on some incredible things. Do those two kind of join back together again?
Yes, in a rather unexpected way. We always like to give our clients presents at Christmas time. So I designed a Christmas cracker made of handmade paper in a nice box, little presentation box. The issue with it was that the paper's so strong because handmade paper has really long fibres with the particular paper we were using, and it wasn't you couldn't tear it. It wouldn't come apart. So that posed a challenge. So then I hit on the idea of, well, yes, we have to construct it in a slightly different way. So I did it like a sort of telescopic construction, which I thought I was being incredibly clever. And then I started researching patents and found out that actually that patent was over 100 years old. Somebody had already filed a patent for that shape, which was fascinating. But that kind of got me thinking about the reusability. I also thought the paper was so beautiful, I thought it'd be such a shame to just throw that away. And that's where the spark came from, to actually create something that you can use and keep rather than throw away. So I started to experiment with ordinary card, and also the fact that gluing the snaps in the end was really messy. And I thought maybe there's a way of actually doing it. We don't need to use glue, and so I can show you that's why that came about.
So for anyone who's listening, this is can I have a little look?
Yes, yes.
So it's a cracker.
Yes.
It's a Christmas cracker, and it works like a cracker.
Yes.
And so basically you put something inside it.
Yeah.
Now, is it a Christmas cracker? Now, this is quite interesting. Is this, because I think Christmas, but do other cultures use crackers?
That's a really good point, actually. They're not known in many sort of markets.
Okay.
Specifically. I mean, they're not known in Poland, for instance, I know that.
Right, okay.
Or across Europe. It's very, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand.
All right, okay.
Yeah, they tend to have them, but...
Amazing. So I'll give it back to you. I don't want to break anything.
No, that's fine.
So was this the seedling of your next, well, I guess your next big idea?
Yes, I mean, this is an example of form follows function, in that the reason it's this shape is because the snap, rather than being glued, it's folded over 2 slots. So that's what holds the snap in place.
Amazing.
So the only way you could do that is by having flat ends and having it square. So that's really how that shape came about.
And they're reusable Christmas crackers?
Yes.
So if you snap that Christmas cracker that you have in your hand there, what about the snap? Like, how do you re-snap? Or do you just put another snap in?
You put another snap in. Do you like to have a go?
Yeah, absolutely. I never win at these, ever. So let's see if something changes. I don't know how nothing came.
No.
So was that connected?
It is connected, but you'll notice that it didn't go with a really loud bang.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So that's my next invention.
Right.
They do work with normal loud snaps. You can put a normal snap in, it'll bang like a normal cracker. But in the early days when I was doing trade shows, I wanted to create a bit of theatre, so I'd stand there and go, hey, pull this. We'd have a pile of crackers, go, pull this. Really to get conversations going. And the amount of people that said, oh, no, don't pull it. Like, and I thought, well, that's interesting. Why is that? So I did start to research it, and I realised that actually that there are people that just have phobias of loud noises or just don't like loud noises. Or there's people with ADHD, autism, PTSD, other conditions that they can't tolerate those noises. So I developed this thing called EcoSnap, which basically works like a snap, but it doesn't, as you heard, pull with a loud bang. So you still get that resistance, but it doesn't bang.
Amazing. So you get the resistance exactly the same. I felt it then, but no bang whatsoever. And did you find that made a difference with people?
I'd launched it sort of 50-50. I was giving people the option of you can have them with the snaps or the eco snaps, just to test the market. And I was really encouraged to see how many people took up the snaps, because it's not only that, it's people with pets. You know, some people actually avoid Christmas crackers because their pets are nervous. You know, it causes a flight or flight response, and also the smell. So pets have like a really strong sense of smell. Maybe they're picking up on that smell as well as something to be frightened of. So it works on a number of different levels.
So you've got these two lives that have kind of gone in different directions. You've come together and you've had this realisation about these crackers that you've incredibly made and started. So did you then decide there and then, this is a company, I'm going to create it as a fully fledged company, and we're going to see how far this goes?
Yeah, so it was something that was I'd sort of put on a shelf for a while, and then thought, no, it just kept nagging me. No, I need to give this a go. We actually just had a table at the primary school over the road, Christmas fair. Just put some samples. I made some handmade samples, put them out, just to see if anybody would be at all interested. And people were buying them. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Then maybe I should start looking into this. So, yeah.
Amazing. So you started. What's the name of the company?
Keep This Cracker.
Keep This Cracker. And when did you start officially?
About 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how's that been?
It's interesting actually, because I started my business when few people were talking about sustainability. That takes us back to what we were saying earlier. So I kind of naively thought, yeah, this is really going to chime with everybody. But actually, it was a hard sell. It really was. People were like, well, it was just a cracker. Why would I want to keep it? It was really around about the time of the Blue Planet series, I really noticed that I started to get an uplift. But those early years gave me the opportunity to find the right suppliers, work with the right manufacturers that really understood what it was I was trying to achieve, and maybe sort of develop the business and iron out the creases. And so, it's not something I regret. It was a learning curve. But now when I mention crackers, I think the first thing most people say is, oh my goodness, so much waste. So I don't feel I have to sell the idea quite so much.
It's like the market's kind of caught up with how advanced you were, and now it's there. So it's kind of like the two meeting together at that point.
Yeah.
So where are they? So sustainability-wise, so where do you get the material for these crackers?
There's FSC.
Okay.
They're FSC card. I also have some craft ones that are made of compostable card. So it's a special type of board. It's a folding box board that is used for carton making. There's a surprising amount of paper technology that's gone into something like this to make it function. Some of my customers are telling me they're using them 5 years on already. Wow. So I know, that's just great. So the function, how it functions, is really, really important, and that determines the sort of paper that's used.
And where do you manufacture them?
It's all UK made.
Okay.
It's all made in the UK, yeah. So,
and where are they getting you? So where are your buyers? Is it getting shipped across or over to the US, Canada, different places? And how do you sell these? Is it online, in person?
Right. Well, I actually sell them flat packed.
Flat packed,
right. So they come in a cardboard wallet, flat. So the other premise is that you can fill them yourself.
Right.
So you can choose what you want to put inside. Which is a big appeal for a lot of people. So they come like that, perfect for online sales, just fit through your letterbox. So I sell direct to customers online, through Not on High Street as well. But I also sell to trade, garden centres, galleries, independent gift shops, zero waste stores have been really the growth in that area. So, yeah.
That's amazing. I think there's something really special. Well, obviously is something really special, but the fact that you've created something so sustainable, so creative, and you've got it. You started it 10 years ago. Like people are talking about this stuff now, but you started ages ago. Your journey of getting to this. So, sustainability. Okay, you started on a creative journey, not necessarily a sustainable journey. Why is it that sustainability is now, or 10 years ago, came to this point where you can match the two together? Why did that become so important to you?
I suppose when I looked at the statistics, it's estimated 100 million crackers could be pulled in one festive season alone in the UK. And I got my calculator out. I know I said at the beginning maths wasn't my strong point, but I worked out that if you laid those disposable crackers end to end, they could reach the North Pole from the UK 8 times. So when you think the amount of material, I mean, we think we have a box and we recycle it, but you multiply that up. And that doesn't include the packaging or the hats or the jokes or the stuff that goes inside. So, yes, so that's really how I think the two come together.
Wow. When you make it visual like that, it makes it 8 times. That's wow. So one of the things that I was recently in January, I was at the Better Business Summit, which is all about sustainability, and it was something amazing in Manchester. One of our ambassadors, Hannah Cox, leads on that. But one of the things they talked about, it not being an environmental battle, but also being an economic battle, because those who have the least financials, full stop, if they're trying to survive, why should they care about sustainability? Or why will they care about sustainability? Because they're trying to feed themselves, and they're trying to... So how do we create this environmental battle that we're on right now? How do we make it more accessible to all, or make it matter to more people?
Yes, that's a really good question. I think we do have to consider the fact that times are hard for everybody. But I think environmental solutions tend to mean more expensive to a lot of people, but I don't think it has to be. I see my product as an investment. So if you're going to spend the money on it now and you're going to use it over and over again, how much you're going to save money in the long run. Yeah. I think it's about making better choices in what we buy, buying things that are going to last longer, rather than spending more money on things that we're just going to get rid of, and because they either fall apart or or don't work anymore. So yeah, so I think it's about thinking more creatively to find those solutions.
I think that's so, and the power of the now, and I'm a millennial, so I want it and I want it yesterday kind of thing. I'm the least patient person ever, and it's kind of like, but once it comes, really it's that now looking at the more sustainable future and using things sustainably it's a culture shift. I think we have to change our culture, and I think we are doing. I think we are starting to do that and doing it better, and products like what you're doing, but I think it's even more important than the products is yourself. Mindsets and the experience that you bring into the products. Your story is so powerful, because that is the special thing, because there's a reason. You've seen the gap, and that gap, it's not in a chair anymore that's stood like on top of each other. It's actually, seeing the gap that has created this. Because of gaps, you've created something really special, and there's a reason and intent behind it. So I say thank you for doing that. Not everyone would do that. Most people would be like, yeah, you know what, it's all going bad. But you use your creativity and your values and merge them together. So, Bea, thank you so much for doing that. That's really special. Like, really special. And how do people find out about yourself, the company, and what you're up to?
I'm on various social media channels as @KeepThisCracker.
Okay.
So,
is there a website where people can purchase things as well?
Yes, again, Keep This Cracker.
All right. Amazing.
I go with the theme.
Easy is the way.
Yeah.
Easy is the way. So, Bea, on that side of things, we've got through to the part where we go to your quickfire questions.
Oh, right.
So for every Tales to Inspire guest, they usually hate this bit because I don't usually tell them about it, and it's like, right, well, what's the quickfire questions about? It is completely random. The way it's going to happen is I'm going to start a sentence, you're going to finish it.
Oh, right, okay.
And we don't have to explain any of our answers. We just go to the next question. Or the next point. So, are you ready? Okay. So, sustainability is?
Making better choices.
Being a leader.
Inspiring people, taking people with you.
Creativity should?
Challenge the norm.
I like the challenge and now I like the norm as well. Education can be better at?
Letting people learn how to be more creative.
Having your own business?
Is very hard work. You have to wear a multitude of hats and you have to learn specialities in so many different areas. It's a challenge, but also it's very satisfying and rewarding.
And there's something so true around that is, I think it can be really glorified being an entrepreneur. You think, oh, well, you get the freedom, you get all this money. It is tough. There's no guarantee about anything, and actually you're probably working twice as hard as you did when you had a 9-to-5 job, because you just have to commit to that. So absolutely. How much of where you're at right now is because of luck, and how much of where you're at right now is because of hard work?
Hard work. Yeah, I don't think luck comes into it. No, it's just getting out there, sharing the message. Which thank you for the opportunity to do that today.
Of course.
Just getting up and there are times when there are knockbacks, and you have to just take a learning from that and think, okay, so that didn't work. Why didn't it work? What do I do to learn from that? What can I do differently?
If there was one piece of advice you was to give your 24-year-old self, what would that piece of advice be?
Trust your instinct. Trust your gut.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really special. So now, Bea, it comes to our final two questions that we've asked every Tales to Inspire guest. So over 150 people we've asked these two questions. My first one is, Bea Thackeray, what is your definition of the word inspire?
Yes, okay, definition. I think it's learning or observing something that makes you realise and evaluate a challenge. I don't think it's enough to just say, oh, I feel really inspired by that painting or the fact that that person climbed a mountain. It's actually going out and doing something. It's that something should inspire you into action.
Yeah, I love that. It's that learning that inspiration into what? Yeah, I love that. And Bea, my last question is, if you were to live your greatest life, you're looking back on your life and you're like, I've really cracked this life, I've done everything I wanted to do, and you're looking back on it, what's the biggest impact that you want to have had during this lifetime?
Gosh, I mean, it's difficult not to sound really grandiose and pompous, isn't it? Like, I'm going to change the world with a reusable cracker.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I suppose, I think it's back to the sort of simplest thing, is to bring joy. I think that's one of the most important things. Just having a smile on your face, however hard things are. The world reflects back on you.
Well, Bea, thank you so much for being on the Tales to Inspire podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for watching today's episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please leave a comment in the comment section below, and we cannot wait to see you for our next episode.